and the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of March 10th, the regular meeting of March 24th, and the special meeting of March 31st. What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor, this is Councilwoman Combs. Move to approve.
Madam Mayor, this is Deputy Mayor Combs, and I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Any questions, comments, or amendments to that motion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Councilwoman Velez?
Councilwoman Valeris.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to ask the clerk if the mistype on page, I think it was 40, yeah, it's 42 of 94 is corrected. It had said that Mr. Best had participated by teleconference and he did not.
Page 42. Okay,
I can address that, Madam Mayor.
okay. Yeah, it says in the body that he was absent, so, okay. Good catch,
Yes,
all right?
that was good catch. And as you can see in the packet, it obviously isn't changing because it was noticed after the fact. But for the final permanent record, he will be removed from the list of showing who's present.
Okay,
And that line, Councilmember Best was absent and excused, will remain.
okay,
And then there were a couple of things that were in here as well as kind of Scrivener's error where we were bringing in Kimberly Kimberly Green. Some of that timing will be corrected as well.
Okay.
So that was something that we had to go back and listen as we're trying to figure out when she actually got on, and so her time will be corrected and changed.
okay. Anything further on the motion to approve the agenda? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote on the approving of the agenda, please?
Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs? Councilmember Steve Carrington? Councilmember Richard Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberick?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. The next item on our agenda is reports, and City Manager, for your last verbal report to us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So tonight in the packet has our building report for March. As you can see, it's not the most encouraging news, but it's not to be unexpected given our current situation. The piece that, I mean, there were still some permits issued in March. Signs and buildings as well. Our construction can go, it's part of the essential, those essential activities that can go ongoing. But I suspect that we'll see this trend continue for another month, if not two. When you look down towards the bottom of the page, at the fees collected, you'll see there's a significant difference in fees, about $50,000 from last year. That's reflected in our overall general fund, and I'll discuss that here next. So you can see the Radio Free Palmer inside the city schedule. I will do this week and next week, followed by Public Works, who will talk about spring cleanup, which is going to continue. It's just we won't have the community picnic if we're still under these conditions, but we will pick up the waste like we did last year. So just a general review of finance. The first quarter financials won't be available until the end of April because we post items for March throughout the month of April. But just a quick look at where we are. It's still really too early to determine sales tax impacts to the city. When you drive the streets, you can just see what the impact that the restrictions have on our businesses downtown. But Palmer, the government part of Palmer and the revenues that keep us going, we've always been a basic services community when it comes to our sales tax and what that comes from. So groceries is our biggest, and with the event and the items that we don't see on the shelves, that means items have been sold. So of course grocery sales are up. Gas is typically our next biggest. A couple of things there: people aren't traveling as much, and these are just anecdotal. It doesn't show up in our sales tax, but the other piece that's very noticeable is the price of gas has gone down. So 3% of something that's gone down is definitely going to have an impact on our sales tax as well. Again, we won't see the actual numbers until the end of April, and that will only reflect really half of the month of March because the impact, the mandates didn't happen until after March 16th. So really, the months of April and the end of month of May will be, the true assessment of where we stand with revenues. But because we're based primarily on basic goods and services, we will be impacted. The government will be impacted, but not as significantly as our business community. So that's, the city will be okay as far as the administration of the government services. But the real true impact is, again, to the community, the folks that can't go to work, the businesses that are having to change their business model. And those won't necessarily reflect in our city revenues. Overall, when we look at, the first 3 months, we're ahead on sales tax overall. We had a great month. January, February was a good month. And then March, again, still looked pretty healthy. So again, when we look at sales tax, compared to our projections, we expect it to be at 25% by the end of this month. And we're right about 24 point something. And we still haven't finished posting all our revenues for the month. So that's the good news story. Overall revenues, I just talked about building permits being down by 55,000. That's reflected in our overall revenue. When we look at our revenue, we don't, or our expenditures versus revenue. Our expenditures are generally, peanut butter spread. We take 100% divided by 12 months. So by the end of March, we'd be expected to be at 25% expended. We're pretty much on track. Today, we're at 19.67%. All postings haven't been done, but I suspect by the time all the postings have been made, it will be close to 23%. So at this point in time, the city is still in good position financially. Again, when I say the city, it's the government portion of the city. The rest of the city is not necessarily in such a good shape. But the government will continue. We have enough in savings to get us through this, I believe. But when we start looking at other sources of revenue, municipal aid, that's questionable whether we'll see that this year, and we projected 120,000. We projected, a grant for some capital projects for sidewalks that probably won't come through. So there's other things that will show up when we compare our revenues to expenditures that really, will take away that. We won't get the revenue, so we'll adjust our budget so it won't reflect that we're overspent or underspent. On some good news, the FAA, through the Airport Improvement Program and the CARES Act, they have funds available for airport operations. And the initial cut looks like the city will receive $30,000 to continue operations. So there's no strings attached. There's always strings attached with federal funding. But this is for operations, which typically we don't get. So that'll help pay salary, make up potentially for some lost revenues out there. The other piece of that is it's going to fund 100% our grant program for this year. So we have a study that's ongoing. Typically, it's 93% federal and 7% city. Because of the CARES Act and the funding that's there, we will receive 100% funding for our project. It's not a big project, but every penny counts.
Right, it does. Good. Well, that is good news. Yeah.
The other piece for fees and permits, and we're working it now based on what Anchorage has done, what the state's done, looking at fees and penalties and fines. We aren't in a position where we can waive, utility fees. That pays for, it's a revenue fund. It pays for, the fees pay for the operations.
Right.
What we're looking at is the potential to waive penalties and fees for a certain period of time. So finance, community development, public works are all looking at the different fees and fine schedule that they have to see what would be appropriate to reduce. Anchorage reduced their building permit fees by 20%. So we're looking at that potentially to ease the burden on those that want to build. Again, my assessment is if somebody is in a position to build, the extra 20% helps, but is not going to discourage them from building. But anything we can do to encourage to help others meet their needs, we'll do that. So I suspect that we'll have that ready by the first meeting in May as a resolution to temporarily waive or suspend certain portions of our fee and fine schedule. That's all I have. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the community for all the wonderful support they've given me and my family while we've been here in Palmer. I'd like to thank the council for all the support and guidance that they provided to me and the staff on how to run the city. And then finally, I just want to say thank you to, I don't want to say the staff, it's my staff. Very, very loyal, very capable, leaving the city in great hands to support the next city manager. And I look forward to watching from afar the great things that Palmer will do. So thank you very much.
We certainly are going to miss you, that's for sure. And so the rest of the council knows I asked today Brad and Norma to put on a committee of the whole for our city finances for our meeting in May. We should have all of the expenditures and revenues in at that time for the first quarter. So we'll get a chance then to see, you know, if we do need to make any adjustments but even if we don't have to make adjustments, at least we know where we are and what will need to be done. So that, you'll see that on the May 14th agenda. So, okay. And does anybody have any questions? Any sad goodbyes, huh? So, anyway, well, we've said it time and time again, but it is worthwhile to repeat, you know. We really appreciate your time here and wished it would have been 4-0 instead of just 4, but thank you very much. You came in to assist us on the council when we were, I think, pretty struggling with our past experiences with city manager, and we're glad we took a chance, and we're glad you took a chance on us. So thank you very much. Okay, the next item is the city clerk's report, and we have a regular lengthy one there.
Right?
Yeah, so go
you,
ahead,
Madam Mayor.
Madam Clerk.
The first item I want to talk about is the citizen petitions. As the council was aware, my office has received 2 petitions. We have a referendum petition for repealing the Palmer Municipal Code 5.32. That's relating to the marijuana. No change there at this point from what the council has been informed of, which is that the petition books started to be issued on April 3rd. And so the sponsors have 90 days to collect signatures and return those books, which is July 3rd, 2020.
Okay.
Then we have the initiative petition on term limits. This is something that has some new developments since the last council meeting that we had. And that is, on March 27th, the primary contact had refiled his initiative petition and the application material, and everything was certified in proper form on April 7th, not March 7th, April 7th.
Okay.
And so it was, after certification, the petition books were put together, and the petition books were issued on Thursday, April 9th.
All right.
So the sponsors have 90 days to collect their signatures and return the books. And so that is the following week. It's July 8th.
Okay.
So with that, the term limits is a little bit different because the council did have a public hearing regarding resolution 2010, and that was the council term limit resolution that was directed by the council to be brought forward, coming out of some committee of the wholes. So as noted in the legal opinion that's attached in the packet, I won't summarize all of it, the city council has the option of bringing back resolution 2010 and making a decision on that resolution, adopt it, or at this time, table indefinitely. It was.
Mayor, can you please?
Oh, thank you. I was just asking the clerk, the motion, I believe, that we made at the meeting was to have that resolution brought back at the discretion of the clerk, and I was just asking the clerk if she felt that she was going to have that on the agenda for the first meeting in May.
My question is actually, what does the council want to do?
Okay.
Because there's 2 things.
Now.
Does the council want to bring it back
Mike,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Does the council want it returned back prior to the July petition deadline date, or do you want to wait until after that? As it states, you know, the council's resolution, if it is passed, the certification of the petitions would not continue. So my question is, when does the council wish to have that back?
I'm sorry.
Phone again.
So- Okay, was
That's
Councilman
Richard.
Best, did I hear, or I don't?
Y-
see-
y- Was off again.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, my mic is still in the hospital, and so I got to remember to continue to turn this one on. Thank you. Okay, so do we have some input from the council? Do you want it on, maybe I should just ask you, do you want it on the first meeting of May? I see
Mayor?
some heads, yes, go ahead.
Councilwoman Combs. Yeah, I think we should, and have it on our agenda. In the petition, I think we need to move forward.
Okay. Yeah, is there any, maybe I should say, is there any objections from anybody for us placing it on our first of May's, or first meeting in May? Okay, all right. So I think you have your direction then,
I do.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much.
And then continue
you.
with your report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So going on to the October 6, 2020 regular election, recruitment for election officials have begun. And it's been an interesting response that I've received. I have been receiving calls from some of my election officials that they will not be serving this year because there is concern about what happens with the COVID virus, the coronavirus. They will not be turning in applications. It's not, I have some who said that they will turn in their application, but they want to hold the
Still,
right to
yeah.
not show up.
Okay.
And then I have some that say, I'm here for the process, the public process. I want to make this happen, keep our polls, you know.
Okay.
So with that, I also did participate in a teleconference on Friday with the Division of Election Director and quite a few clerks from around the state about what is happening at the state level. And how are they moving forward with their primary, and how are they, you know, and then also a summary of how Anchorage did with their election that they just held.
Right.
So the state legislature did give authority to the State Division of Election to run a vote by mail election for this year. That
Okay.
includes primary and their November general election.
Oh, okay, all right.
The state is not willing to make a decision at this point on
Okay.
what they're going to do. They have not committed to how they're going to move forward. She said that that only just happened. The legislature's just awarding that ability. So there is research and work that, you know, she's going to do and report back. So it was interesting to hear that side of what the legislature did. It was also very good to hear from the communities as to what they're doing to move forward. Prior to the phone call, I had already started looking at some other contingencies, like starting to prep. What does it mean? What does it look like? What can we do to help protect our election officials in our community? One of the things that I'll be doing is sending out a flyer with the utility bill in May, which will have a letter saying, if you are concerned, you are able to participate in an absentee by mail, and an application will be in there for people who wish to not go out into public,
Sure.
but still receive their ballot. This also will help because it'll reduce the number of people that are out in the community. A big part also is looking at what happens if the senior centers will not allow us to use their facility. We lost a polling place.
Well,
Well,
it's
already,
still locked down, right?
it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, yeah. And I know we're talking October for us, but I think that getting these things in line is important right now.
Sure.
Before the end of last year, I had already reserved the depot. So we have that contingency that if we need to, we can move to the depot. I've
Okay.
already confirmed with our Region 2 director that if I have to move a polling place, that we can do that.
And that would be for both precincts, or will the gymnasium in the borough be available for that precinct, or do we
Now,
know?
this time, the borough is not open to the public.
Right, not even
Yep.
the gym?
Not,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't believe the gym is.
Okay.
We do it in the council, or in the assembly chambers. I know, we have someone here.
Yeah.
We have our precinct is in the council chambers.
Oh,
not the
that's right.
gym.
Yeah, it used to be in the
Mhm.
gym.
It
yeah.
used to be in the gym,
Remember
right.
moving, Yeah, right,
So, yeah, I don't know if the gym is open. I believe the whole facility is closed, but,
okay.
you know, we just kind of setting some things up if we need to.
Okay.
Maybe move to the gym if that's, because that is definitely a separate entrance and whatnot. I love
Right,
that
yeah.
idea. So at this point, we are still working on contacting our election officials who have served and seeing if they'll,
Okay.
at least submit applications. And then kind of working on that absentee by mail. And that was kind of the direction that the other clerks at the other jurisdictions were looking at, is doing an absentee by mail type of campaign just to help reduce the number of people who will show up to the polls. But the polls are very important.
Sure.
So they serve a great value. So anyway, those are kind of where we're at with the election at this point. And then the vote by mail information, when we did in the committee of the whole, it was requested to reach out to RDI. They helped Anchorage, and they're currently helping Kenai with their vote by mail feasibility. Well, they helped Anchorage entirely. They're currently working with Kenai on their feasibility study of going to a vote by mail. So I did hear back from them. And in the packet is their proposal. It's $3,000, which would work with the city to see if it's even something that is a viable option for Palmer to even do a vote by mail.
Okay.
So like I said, it's $3,000, and the direction I'm asking the council tonight is how do we want to move forward with the proposal? Put it on a future agenda for consideration, or $3,000, it is not budgeted. Okay, this was not something we budgeted for. So is it something that we want to just say, nope, no thank you? Or do we want to move forward and have a discussion, committee of the whole, or a full-on piece of legislation? I'm just looking for direction on how the council would like to move forward with that.
Did the state election say when they were going to make a decision regarding going by for their August primary for mail-in?
She said she would get back to us the beginning of May.
The beginning of May?
Yeah,
Okay.
so not too far out, but it won't be at our teleconference meeting this Friday.
Okay, okay.
So, but
all
yeah,
right.
I'm thinking the beginning of May.
Okay, so a couple weeks then.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All righty.
So that direction piece, how we
Okay.
want to move forward with the proposal.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts, input?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs, thank you very much, Norma, for the thoroughness of your report. And I know that everybody realizes that we're in a state of flux. And there's so many things that it's difficult to decide. Does the decision need to be made right now because we don't know what's going to be happening at X time? So, what I would like to suggest is that we make a decision on this after Norma has been able to find out what the state is going to do. We're going to have a lot more information in our hands, I believe, in about a month. So I'd like to see this postpone, this kind of decision, whether it's committee of the whole or whatever, discussed a month from now, because there's going to be a lot more data that we're going to have by that time, I believe, about different things coming back online, different things opening up, or not opening up. So that's what I would like to propose.
Okay, so asking the clerk to have it in her report for our meeting in May, then whatever the latest is regarding what's going on, okay?
Yeah, in particular because she said she wouldn't have the information about what the state's going to be doing. I would like to see us, as it's going to be confusing enough to have any particular changes. If we are going to have some changes, it would be, in my opinion, nice to have pretty much the same thing that the voters are going to be able to expect from the state, and because it gets very confusing. about the voting. Anchorage experienced that here in the last 12 months about whether or not they were going to receive things in the mail, that sort of thing. It hasn't worked as well. And I think the more information we have, the more that we can mirror what's going on in other elections so people do not have conflicting procedures going on, every few weeks, that we'll be doing our voters a real service.
Councilwoman Valerius, looks like you had your hand up. Uh-huh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually would like to see us move forward with this because I think it's a feasibility study. So that doesn't mean that we've made a decision, but I think it
That's
is.
true.
It is the direction that we're going to need to head inevitably in the future here. So, I mean, if we're talking about pandemics or whatever things we're talking about. So I would actually like to see us move ahead with a feasibility study.
Okay, I think Councilwoman Valerius, what would have to be an item on our next agenda.
Right.
Because we couldn't,
That would be fine.
this is not, hasn't been advertised, so we don't have any public input. And since it's being budget, there's certain other hoops that we need to
Correct.
jump into, so.
Yeah, no,
So
I get
with that,
but I would rather us not wait around on longer than need be, please.
Okay. Further
Which I
comments?
think is what Linda was saying too. It's the impression I. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Other council comments? Councilwoman. Holmes?
Agenda, and we can talk about it. I think it's something we need to move forward with. Anchorage had a 30% voter turnout this year with their vote by mail, and they ended up going from 5 in-person precincts to just 1. They don't have the full totals yet as to how many people voted in person, but they did limit their in-person voting from 5 to 1 precincts so that people could be safer and they would have to recruit less election workers. So I think us consolidating down in October, if this is still a threat, then that's a good idea. But obviously with a voter turnout of 30.65% in the Muni, it's definitely something that we should be looking at. Thank you.
Other council comments? Okay, so Madam Clerk, I think, and you have your direction.
I do, thank you. I
Okay,
have the direction I was looking for.
And
for
now,
everything
did you want to address the memo you got from Mike, or Mike, should we jump to your attorney's report and then we can come back to the mayor's report, or how did you want to handle that?
It's up to you, Mayor. However you'd like to do it, I'm happy to accommodate you and the council.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and talk about it since the clerk has already talked about the petition. So, go ahead.
Thank you. Basically, when the new application or the initiative petition came in, it initiates the council procedure to review that application. And there's various principles that are presented, and some are subject matter restrictions that you'll see in the memo. And those subject matter restrictions are basically that you can't relate to an appropriation, dedicate revenues, fixing mill levies, local or special legislation, creating courts, those sorts of things. None of those applied to the application. Also, the application wasn't restricted based on the subject matter restrictions I just generally enumerated. It included only a single subject. It was legislative, and you could enforce it, so it passed those tests to proceed. The clerk reviewed the initiative application for form and found that that was appropriate and that the sponsors were voters in the city, so it passed muster from that sense. So the real substance of the analysis when we looked at it was whether if the council adopted Resolution 20010, which is term limit measure, whether it's substantially similar. And if you look at page 5 of the memo, there's a 3-part test in the Alaska Supreme Court case that applies, and the 3-part test is to determine the scope of the subject matter, and then depending whether it's narrow or broad, it would afford the legislature. They say the legislature here because it was a state case, but the principle is analogous. So here, just substitute in the word council, a greater or less latitude, depending on whether that subject matter, as I noted, is broad or narrow. Next, it has to consider whether the general purpose of the legislation is the same as the general purpose of the initiative. And we concluded that it was. And then we finally concluded that the third part of the test was met, that both of the measures met the purpose they were intended to promote. So we concluded that the initiative application by the citizens and the council's ballot proposition to amend the charter were substantially similar. So it is our opinion that if the council adopts Resolution 20-010 and it's approved by the voters, it would supersede the citizen term limit initiative because they're substantially similar.
And Mike, if I may clarify, that was based on term limits, as we talked about at our public hearing we had a month ago, was, or a couple weeks ago, was that that's based on term limits only. The term limits could change, but the positions both had to be applicable to the mayor and council members. That if the positions changed, that would no longer be substantially similar. So, just want to make sure that that was pointed out, because that was part of that discussion when we had our public hearing before. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, these both apply to both the council and the mayor.
Yeah.
So yeah, Norma is correct.
And so there would be no competing ballot measure, because that was another concern that was brought up. How do we handle
if
and
we have
work through
two
competing ballot measures? There
Right.
would be no competing ballot measure.
Right.
Because Resolution 10 would supersede the initiative process.
Right.
So that's, one or the other. There would
Right,
be,
yeah.
and councils would supersede at any point.
Yeah.
But as direction was given tonight prior, is that will be on our May 12th meeting.
Right. And, Madam Clerk, if
Yeah.
you, I'm sure you would think about it, but maybe in our agenda packet for the May meeting, you might include
me to include that?
this. Yeah,
Sure,
include this also.
Yeah, I'll
So
write
we
my note
would
on that.
have that. I'm sure Mike would be online and we can remember, but it would be good for the public to have that also. So they'd be able to review that when they were reviewing.
Madam Mayor, one point just want to bring up too.
Sure.
Even though the years in each of in the citizen application for the petition and the council charter amendment measure are different to some degree, I think that doesn't matter because the 3-part test I enumerated earlier is still met. And I think, Norma, that's what you were discussing.
Okay. Does any of the council members have any questions of the report we just got from the attorney as well as the clerk's report? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, city manager.
Is your mic not? Oh.
One thing to add, the city manager, Nate. When we went through our police department shuffle back in December, when we promoted from within, it had opened up 2 positions. We have been able to fill both of those positions. One is at the academy in Sitka right now and is scheduled to graduate in June. And the other one is coming from Fairbanks. It's a local who went to Fairbanks years ago and is wanted to come back to the Valley or Anchorage. And we were able to convince him that this was the place to go.
Great. Good.
He starts Monday. It's Officer Larimer, and he comes with a twofer. He's a dog handler,
Oh,
and
neat.
Fairbanks has offered to send the dog with him as well for a fee. We discussed, using, and the funds we'll use will be our special funds. But this is a great deal for the city because the dog is trained, the officer is trained, so we don't have to expend any funds on training. Comes with equipment. The only piece we'll have to do is outfit a vehicle with a canine kit. So it's a great new story for Palmer Police Department. And it works out great for Fairbanks as well. They don't have to start over. They'll have to start over, but they've got dogs already. So, just want to inform the council, if you see a canine unit in the future that is
Wow.
not an Easter surprise, we've been able to jumpstart our program. And this also opens us up to service organizations contributing to the support of that dog. So as those organizations come forward, then we'll be able to appropriate those grants and receive additional help with keeping a canine in Palmer.
Good.
It's a multi-purpose dog, so it's a great twofer, a great officer and a great canine, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, great salesmanship, Chief.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Best.
could he repeat the K-9 officer name?
His name is Officer Tyler Larimer.
No, I meant the K-9 itself.
Oh, the canine's name is Diesel.
Diesel. Thanks, sir.
Too bad it's not Moose or something. Okay, alrighty, any questions again from the council to the clerk? And, Mike, did you have anything else for, the rest of your report, or just what written? Or do you have anything else to bring to the council's attention?
No, Madam Mayor, I think that's it. So thank you.
So has any of the council got any questions of the clerk or the attorney's report? Nope, okay. So we'll move on to my report. A month ago, outside of a Zoom on a camera, I didn't even know what any of that was, but now I feel like I could do this stuff in my sleep. And so even though we're not having public meetings, it seems like we're having more meetings than ever, whether it's on Zoom or on teleconference. And so we just continue doing that. The plans also for the council meeting is unless, something is lifted, we will just continue doing what we're doing. And unless, there's less restrictions, or if there's more restrictions, then of course the clerk will, keep you up to date. So, any questions on my report or anything you'd like to know about or anything? We're having, well, this week where it's only gonna be 2 days a week, but for the last, I don't know, month, I guess it's been 3 days a week for the mayor and the hospital and the health foundation and, I don't know who else, everybody so we have that and so that is ongoing. We did cancel the regular mayor manager meeting for this month, but we've covered it more in tripling the meetings and reducing them, so.
Madam Mayor.
Uh-huh. Any questions?
First of all, I would agree with you, with the, somewhat more meetings, I'm doing the same thing, particularly with the Commission on Aging, and, various organizations, but, under your report, you had put the Sister City, anniversary trip.
Right.
And, I know you and I have spoken about this, and I'd like to address it and make sure it's on the record that there is a great deal of concern amongst several of the delegates about the feasibility of continuing with the plans to make this trip. It's uncertain. There's no doubt. At the moment, the smart thing seems to be to do a holding action, like I, briefly said earlier. The more information we have, the better decisions we can make. In this case, if we were to cancel this trip with different concerns, et cetera, right now, has not lifted any of their restrictions about refunding monies. So we're not hurting anything by putting off a decision one way or the other. In fact, we have our fingers crossed that if we do have to cancel this trip, that by the time we make that decision, a hard decision on that, that the airlines will have changed their policies about refunds. Every single delegate has paid for their ticket out of pocket, and it's just part of the deal. It was part of what they wanted to do because they really, truly wanted to travel to our sister city, represent the city of Palmer, have that experience, and they didn't mind that. However, it's a substantial amount for a ticket. So I think that we're going to be doing the delegates a favor by holding off. Obviously, Mrs. Swick is in contact with City Hall in Seroma and will let us know what their thoughts are, because unfortunately the news is telling us that there may be a second wave of the virus going through Japan. So that's pretty much where we stand on it. We did make solid decisions concerning gifts. So a few things will have to be decided one way or the other about the gifts, particularly if they've got any engraving on them that says 2020. But, that's all something that we still have plenty of time to do. And I just, I agree with you. When you and I talked about this, I thought the council needed to know about it. We got it as a matter of record or whatever, but I know you've received calls, I've received calls from delegates that are concerned. They still want to represent the community, but they want to do the safe thing. So hopefully that'll answer any questions, but if you have questions, be sure to give me a holler.
Any of the council have any questions regarding, I think our underlying concern is to be sure that we don't jeopardize our relationship with our sister city. And then, of course, as Deputy Mayor said, she and I started to get phone calls from the people regarding their plane tickets and stuff. So we just wanted to be able to put that on the record, that's where we were, and people are watching. And again, putting it off until the 1st of May. So 1st of May seems to be the golden circle or something, I guess. So anyway, any questions or comments from the council? Okay. The next item on our agenda is audience participation. Anyone in the audience can address the council for 3 minutes if you're representing yourself, 5 minutes if you're representing a group. Audience participation is now open. And the sign-in sheet is over there, and you can do it after you're done, sir.
Dave Fuller, 217 South Cobb Street. Madam Mayor and Council, I'm here again because the behavior of Councilman Best has gone unchecked for far too long. Not only does he show no empathy for his unethical actions, he has most recently demonstrated direct dereliction of his duties as a Palmer City Councilman. As you all know, this began back in January of this year with an unorthodox request of the Palmer Police to disturb the peace. Your majority's silence and lack of acknowledgement on the matter led to an unannounced, yet excused on-the-spot absence of Disneyland during the city clerk's annual review. Granted, the council tried to brand the absence unexcused, but the mayor and council felt the need to cover for him. And finally, the culmination of your silence resulted in Councilman Best's complete dereliction of duties when he skipped the special city council meeting where our newest city manager was selected. And to add insult to injury, due to his absence and through the mayor's insistence, the council has put off and delayed legislation on issues such as term limits and election standards, forcing the citizens of Palmer to launch their own initiative and legislate from the ballot box. To date, no action has been taken by this body to admonish Councilman Best for his behavior. It is evident that the majority silence from the mayor and city council has only perpetuated devil-may-care attitude in his duties as a city councilman. Specifically, why must he uphold standards when the majority of his peers, especially the mayor, do not care nor acknowledge his actions to begin with? Do we as the electorate need to address this from the ballot box? If we do, have to go the route of a recall, please be assured that we will include all of those that went to bat and supported Councilman Best's shenanigans throughout this period. So Mayor DeVries and the Palmer City Council, the question citizens of Palmer want to know is, do you care? Will you act? Is this the norm? Your attention to Councilman Best's annex would seem to, your inattention to Councilman Best's annex would seem to indicate otherwise, but we can always hold out hope that common sense rules the day and you have the fortitude to do the right thing. Your silence so far has been deafening.
Thank you.
Oh, because you're talking with your
Sure.
chamber, not you? Sure, let me, perfect. Clear that off, I'll reset the clock. Gives me time to set the clock.
So let's see. Can I pull it up? Sorry, I had it pulled up. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see your faces in person and virtually, which is the new norm. This is Ailish Van. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Palmer Chamber of Commerce. I'm here tonight to represent the Greater Palmer Chamber of Commerce. I've been the Executive Director for almost a year, and I wanted to be here tonight to express, on behalf of the Greater Palmer Chamber, our gratitude to Nate Wallace. Nate was a regular attendee at our chamber luncheons and our events. I believe that he attended more luncheons than any other city manager as long as I've been around. He spoke about once a year at our chamber luncheons, and I had heard from multiple members that his presentations were always their favorite. He's a great speaker and always kept the crowd engaged with his great PowerPoint presentations that says no new taxes right at the very beginning, because that's what everybody wants to know. So, Nate is a strong leader and built a relationship with the chamber that no other manager has taken the time to do, again, as long as I've been involved with the city and the chamber. I know personally that I could always call Nate and have him give me honest feedback on an idea that I had for the chamber or the city. The relationship between the city and the chamber is an important one. A clean, inviting, and strong city is an inviting place for businesses, and a strong, involved chamber is inviting for businesses. So we are very thankful that Nate has worked with us to create an amazing opportunity and community, an amazing community that we all love. We will greatly miss his lengthy 60-second announcements for the city, which he received an award for at our annual meeting, his friendly spirit, and his leadership in our community. So Nate, thank you for your leadership and your inspiration to be a better leader. We will miss you. That's from the chamber, not me. Just kidding. I'm representing the chamber. I have to dig at him still. So I have a little bit of time left. So I would also like to just give the council an update on things that the chamber is doing right now to support our community. It is very hard to walk through town or drive through town and see it just shuttered. It breaks my heart. That's why I started working from home, because it's just very sad to be downtown and not have anything going on. And people randomly coming into my office because they see that someone's in there that they could actually talk to. So we're just trying to be safe. So we are doing the Support Palmer program, which is a gift card incentive program. So every time somebody spends $25, they get entered to win a $50 gift card. The chamber is buying those $50 gift cards from each business to then give away. I'm not sure when we're going to give them away. That's still kind of in the air, as are a lot of things. We are working on an economic impact survey that I'm working with Assemblywoman Stephanie Nowers from the borough. She's asking us to kind of get some feedback from our members on that. I want to reach out to all business license holders for the city to get more feedback, because the more we have, the better. We've just started. This is going to be our second week of doing a virtual coffee chat with the chamber. So in lieu of having an in-person meeting, we are doing these virtual coffee chats. We have Jen Miller from Renewable IPP speaking tomorrow morning. So if anyone's interested in that, everyone's welcome. It will be done via Zoom, our new favorite thing. And the details I can send to anybody that's interested. And then I need to talk to my board about this, but I think they'll be on board. I want to do a Palmer bingo. So incentivizing supporting our businesses as best as we can. So some of the things on the bingo card would be like leaving a review on Google or their website or Facebook or Yelp to encourage future patrons to go there. And also some other things, donating money to the food bank, there's lots anyway. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but so look for that here in the next week. But we are open to ideas on how we can support our businesses in this time, but we are working very hard to do what we can in this time for our businesses. And we will make calls on May 1st for Colony Days, whether it will be postponed or canceled, and also Friday Fling. There will be some version of Friday Fling, but right now our events committee just decided last week to postpone Friday Fling starting until June 19th. Just for planning purposes and everything else. Really, the first one will start on Colony Days if Colony Days happens. If it doesn't, then it'll be June 9th. I think it's June 19th, the Friday after Colony Days. I think it's June 19th. So anyway, those are the things that we're doing as a chamber right now. And our members have reached out to me. I try to talk to them pretty regularly. And people are scared. There's a lot of uncertainty. But we're trying to do the best we can to bring our town back to where it was before all this started. So with that, thank you very much. And if I can get another 3 minutes for my personal self, that would be, can I do that?
That's up to the mayor.
Okay.
Okay, hold on, let me reset really fast. We'll just go, but,
It won't take me 3 minutes, but
oh, okay.
yeah, just trying to be official. All right, so my name is Ailish Van, and I'm a resident at 225 South Bailey Street here in Palmer. This is my personal thank you to Nate Wallace. I'd like to thank Nate as a former city employee and a city resident. I worked for the city for 10 and a half years, and during my tenure, I saw 4 different city managers in 10 years, 10 and a half years. When Nate was hired, I was of course skeptical because we'd been through 3 in the last 5-ish years, as far as my memory serves. And I must admit that I wasn't sold on him right away. I'm not someone who likes to be told no, and Nate told me no more than anyone else ever had. So I was understandably frustrated with him because of my stubborn personality, which I struggle with daily. But over time, he grew on me. I admired his leadership style and his creativity. I learned how to come with him with an idea so I wouldn't just get shut down instantly. He may have still told me no, but I learned how to ask better questions and not be so sensitive to his brutally honest feedback. Whether he realized it or not, he was teaching me valuable lessons about leadership. He's an inspiring leader who has great ideas and truly cares about his community. Thank you, Nate, for the good care and stewardship you've shown Palmer over the last 5 years. I'm incredibly sad that you're leaving. I'm very proud that I haven't started tearing up tonight, but I know that you'll be making positive impacts in your new community. So yeah, thank you, and I'll miss you. And your crazy ties and your year-round cowboy boots.
So anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council on an item that's on the agenda or something they want to bring to the council's attention? Okay, seeing no one, I will close audience participation. The next item on our agenda is resolution 20-011, submitting the question of amending charter section 1.9 penalties for violation on the city's qualified voters at the October 6, 2020 City of Palmer election. Does any of the council want a staff report before I open the public hearing?
Yes, please.
Okay. Alrighty, sir, a staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So during the budget session, we discussed during the fee and fine schedule that our charter had limited us to $300 for a penalty. So what this does, this takes it, because it's a charter amendment, it takes it to the voters to ask them if they would increase that from $300 to $1,000, which is the state limitation in Title 29. I don't know that there would any reason not to do this, based on dollars, inflation over 50 some odd years. But it doesn't set our fine schedule or at $1,000. It just gives us the opportunity to do that each budget year to examine what we have, because we have first, second, and third violations, and our third violation is the max at 300. So this gives us the opportunity for more egregious violations to raise that limit in our fine schedule. So that's, in a nutshell, what this does. It's a charter amendment, and we have to send it to the voters if we want to have a fine of more than $300.
Any further questions from the council before I open the public hearing? Okay, so the public hearing is now open on resolution number 20-011. And this testimony now is restricted just to the resolution. So is there anyone who would like to testify on this resolution?
Madam Mayor?
Did you receive some things?
I didn't, and that's what I wanted to report to the council.
Oh,
I
good.
forgot to say that during audience participation. I did not receive any written testimony
Okay,
for this public hearing. I did have an inquiry as to when the deadline was.
okay,
That deadline and the council's new form of how the meetings ran and submitting testimony by 5 is on our website, on the agenda packet page, and did get posted on Facebook.
okay,
Due to me not feeling well and not being in the office, that did happen today, but I did see that activity was happening on that post. So it was also on our Twitter and also on our Nextdoor
okay.
social media accounts. So I did not receive anything, but feel that we did an adequate effort to get this out.
To reach out?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. So seeing no one coming forward, does the council have any objections to me closing the public hearing? No? Okay, so public hearing on resolution 20-011 is closed, and what is the council's wishes?
Move to approve, Madam Mayor.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve resolution number 20-011. Discussion, amendments to the motion by the council. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll on the question whether resolution number 20-011 should be approved?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberick?
Yes.
Councilmember Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is new business, action memorandum number 20-027. Approve a council community grant in the amount of $2,000 for the Matsu Running Club for the Who the Let the Girls Out Run Walk. Does anybody from the council want anything from the staff? Okay,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Berberick?
Yes, thank you. I do, I'm just curious about, what is, I understand Who Let the Girls Out was canceled, and, some of the other community council grants that we've approved have also been canceled, including the Palmer Spring Classic, which I talked to the city manager about, already, and I'm just curious what's happening with that.
Okay,
Like, are we just holding the funds?
okay, all right, city manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for events, Who Let the Girls Out has been changed to a virtual event. So they were using that money, the Who Let the Girls Out 20-017, that grant was awarded, the cash portion of it was, they're not using the depot, so that portion will come back to the council grant. The Mayor's Green Day Classic, their intent is to hold that event when it's appropriate. It's Palmer Spring Classic. We had the discussion. Let's not cancel, please. Let's try and if the organization can hold this event later in the year, then we will hold those funds. Same thing for this one. The event is scheduled for the 24th. The indications are they won't be able to do that. The council can either table this action to another time. My recommendation would be if you want to support this event, then follow the procedures that we have, and then again, we'll hold those funds until the organization comes back with, we're gonna have this date, or, we're gonna cancel altogether. If it gets to the point where there's no money left, and there are a couple of corrections to the table, then we can consider pulling those funds back, but for those events that aren't postponed, we have not sent those checks to those organizations, and we won't until they've committed to a new date. If you look at the table, the Palmer Spring Classic should have been $1,000, not $2,000, and then Drive Your Tractor to Work was $475, which gives the total grants approved to be $8,105. So there's just about 4,000, just under 4,000 left.
Okay,
So again, if it gets to the point where we have no money and somebody comes forward with a grant, then we can look at these events and then discuss that at a later date.
okay.
But I would encourage that any of these organizations, that have the ability, you know, if things start picking up, you know, they're scheduled at a certain time because the organization can do it at that certain time. And if you got another race that's bigger later in the year that's planned, I can see why that might not happen. You might not be able to do the event that you said, but my recommendation is, again, you know, we want to encourage as much activity when the restrictions are done, and these type of events bring people to Palmer, and that's what we need to have.
Well, Councilwoman Burbrick, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Madam Clerk, do we have, we do not. Okay, council, what is your wishes on action memorandum 20-027?
Madam Mayor,
Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Combs, I move to approve.
Okay. Is there a second? I heard two people for the motion.
Actually, Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
I
the
actually
person
had a
moving to
question
a
for the
second.
manager.
Let's see, okay, let's see, I heard, Councilwoman Sabrina Combs make the motion. Did I hear a second?
Madam Mayor, this is Councilwoman Burbrick, I'll second.
Okay, and then, Councilman Best, did I hear that you had a question to the city manager?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, go
In
ahead.
the packet on page 80, is community benefits aspect, and they have a detailed budget. But as I read through that appears to be the budget for the entire running group for the whole year, not necessarily their cost and expenditures for this event. And be that as it may, it shows that last year they had $4,000 roughly more in income than they did expenditures. So I don't know that it's clear what the cost of this event is to them, and what funding sources they have coming in for this event in particular. And if the manager has any information on that, that'd be great.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I don't have any additional information on the expenditures. They highlight that they're going to use this money for, I believe, a tent with their logo printed on it, and then also to support the cost of the run. But the actual event budget is not part of this package, nor was it submitted.
Okay, Councilman Best, further question?
It's not a further question of the manager. It's just I don't think we have an accurate picture of what the cost of this event is and what the expenditures are, in which part of our process is to understand what kind of monies a group has coming in, how much an event costs, and then we make sure that we're not basically paying for the whole thing. And also we have to have an understanding of how it is beneficial to our city. I agree with their assertions that this is a great thing to have in Palmer, that it does create a healthy lifestyle, and that they have a lot of participation going on. I don't disagree with that whatsoever, and I think it's probably a good thing. But I just don't think it reflects accurately the information that we need to make this decision. With that, I would move to reduce it to $750.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
I will second it, that this is the deputy mayor.
Okay, thank you. So now the discussion needs to be on the amendment, which is reducing the amount of the grant from 2,000 to 750. Council input?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Deputy
You know,
Mayor.
the reason I was able to support the amendment is I happen to agree with Councilman Best. It's, first of all, I suppose it could be considered a placeholder until they're able to hold the event. I'm sad about every event that is on hold or being canceled, that has brought so many, individuals to our community, in particular, any, event that promotes, the health benefits that this one does. But, I'm with him. It's not clear to me, the, reasoning for the, grant amount. And yet, you know, and I've been able to read a income and expense report for more years than I wanna say. So, when you see it's highlighted that their operation expenditures are $2,800 and, you know, I'm presuming for a fiscal year, the $2,000 just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think it's been adequately, portrayed. So, I'm gonna have to, stick with this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Okay, hearing no further discussion, then, Madam Clerk, would you, take the vote on the amendment to reduce the cost from 2,000, or the grant from 2,000 to 750?
Councilmember Joe Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs.
Yeah,
Is that a yes or a no?
that was a yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries. Motion
Oops,
passes.
my motion, yes, I'm sorry, my thing was, as we were discussing that, as you know, tonight, we did do the introduction for the ordinance amending, the council community grants. So I think, next meeting, when we are discussing that, we may want to do the restrictions of the budget for the event, rather than them presenting their budget like for the whole year or for 6 months or whatever it is. So, maybe if the clerk could make a memo of that, and, we be sure that, and maybe, I don't know if the city manager will have a chance, or maybe Brad will have a chance to come up with, where we might substitute or do an amendment to that, so that it's very clear regarding, you know, when our revenue is coming in, what exactly our revenue is paying for, rather than just yearly expenses or something, so. Okay? Ready, the motion before you is to approve, action memorandum 20-027, except we've changed the amount to $750. Further discussion on that main motion as amended. Okay, Madam Clerk? She's writing down her instructions, thank you.
Okay, so
Go
this
ahead.
is, back to the main motion. And so approving AM 20-027 for $750. Councilmember Joe Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The next item is action memorandum 20-028, authorizing the mayor to execute the city manager's employment agreement with John Musi. And for those that are on Zoom, John Musi is here. So with your permission, I would ask him to approach the table in case some of the council have questions or if you have some further input. So what is the wishes of the council on action memorandum number 20-028?
Madam Mayor, I would move, that we approve, action memorandum number 20-028.
Okay, is there a
Second.
second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion, questions by the council? There were some, changes, and I think they're pretty well yellow highlighted, and, it's, in my correspondence with Mr. Musi, it's my understanding you have reviewed this, and you are in agreement with that? Do you want to go ahead and?
Yes,
Okay.
Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, alrighty. So any questions, comments, amendments by the council?
Madam Mayor, this is Steve Carrington.
Councilman Carrington, go ahead.
I guess I was more comfortable with the idea of if there's a lump sum cash payment of sticking to the 2 months, which I think is what we had in Nate's contract. So I guess that would be a motion to amend.
On which, what are you, on page 85, section 3, is that the one you're talking about?
I'm looking at page 85, section A.
Yeah, but section 3 and then subsection A, right?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Is,
Yeah.
to change the 6 to 2, is there a second to that motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion then on that amendment.
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
I'll let Councilwoman Combs go first.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you.
No, the Councilwoman Combs.
Oh, Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
One of those
Sabrina,
Combs is,
excuse me.
fine. I don't have an issue with the 6 months. I know that you negotiated this contract well with Mr. Musi, and I'm fine with how it's written.
Okay. Yeah, we did discuss that, the 6 to the 2, and that's why the additional language is there in yellow highlighted, that there is very specific reasons and conditions for that, so. Further? Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to address, my,
Madam Mayor,
Yeah, just, Council.
I move that we suspend the rules then, because we're in the middle of a motion.
Okay. Is there any objection to suspending the rules to allow Mr. Musi to address the council?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have any objections, so go ahead, sir.
okay, so thank you very much. The 6 previous manager jobs, I've had a severance clause in each one of those, and it's never resulted in any payment of a severance. So my view is, and I understand of some past history here, but what I try to do is get to the point that we operate in a political environment, and decisions are made sometimes for political reasons. Also, too, I think you're considering to do term limits. So essentially, in 3 years, well, let's say 2 years, there's a possibility that during my contract that nobody remains who hired me, and for their convenience. And that's why I try to put in, if the city council decides, you know what, we just want a different person in here, with no fault of my own, I would be terminated at that time. I think if you would speak to Mr. Wallace and myself, being a local government manager, there's not a whole lot of opportunities out there, and it takes close to a half a year, usually, to search and find one. And I tried to put down every reason possible for any type of bad behavior of the manager that just move me or that person on with absolutely no penalty to the city of Palmer. So that was my view. I did try to make it, if it's a convenient move for convenience, then I would like to be able to support my family while I find other employment.
Madam Mayor?
No hearing.
Madam Mayor?
I'm sorry, my mic was off. Go ahead, Councilman Best.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I as well had issues with that I think this explanation was an excellent explanation. It gives more credence to the reasoning why the adjustment was in there. I wasn't a fan of the amount that we're going with, but I am understanding the rationale behind this the 6 month, and I will be voting against this amendment.
Further discussion by the council? Deputy Mayor, I see your lips moving. I don't know if
Okay,
you're talking
can you hear me now?
yourself or-
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. If I might, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Musi for that explanation. I have to tell you, John, personally, I never would have thought of that, because I think if you check the history of the city of Palmer, that has not ever been the case. Here, in fact, I know of a city manager that was here for 12 years. I believe most folks wouldn't even think in those terms. They would say, well, we got a city manager, he's got a contract, he's here for at least till that contract runs out. So, but I appreciate you bringing that viewpoint to our attention. Because times do change, I'm going to be just like Councilman Best, and I'm going to change my mind on this and not support the amendment.
Further comments from the council members? Okay, so Madam Clerk, would you take the roll for the amendment? And that would be changing on page 85, section 3, subsection A, the 6 to 2 months.
Councilmember Joe Valerius?
No.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
No.
Councilmember Steve Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best?
No.
Councilmember Julie Berberich? No. Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
No.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, now we have before us the motion to accept the contract as presented, action memorandum 20-028. Any further amendments or discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I might make an observation.
Yes, go ahead. Deputy Mayor.
This part of the procedure went exactly as
Okay, further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote, please, on action memorandum number 20-028?
Councilmember Joe Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All righty. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, if I can address, thank you very much for that. I am very excited to be your next city manager. I've already grabbed some documents from Nate. I'm going through those. If there's not a conflict for other responsibilities I have, I will be sitting in the audience for your balance of the city council meetings until I am officially on board. This week, made an offer, an accepted offer to buy a piece of property in Palmer so me and my wife can build a little cottage downtown. We're excited to be fully in 100% a Palmerite. So, so we want to make the Moose and the Moosies proud. And so, seriously, I'm excited. I've been looking for a new challenge. So happy I don't have to leave the valley to do so, and I could not be in a better spot. So I'm thrilled, and thank you very much for the opportunity. This discussion on termination, severance pay, I promise will not be an issue with the people who are here, and hopefully the people who follow you. So thank you very much, and I will be in contact with you if appropriate to really kind of listen and get ready to take the next step. And if I can say one thing about Mr. Wallace, the view from 3 blocks away when I first got here, the constant turnover was a little puzzling. Your city manager, Mr. Wallace, really, I think, brought a lot of stability to your organization. He's a tough negotiator, but a true gentleman and a great public servant. I think you're very lucky to have him, and I'm hoping that I can carry on. In fact, I'm confident I will. My humor's probably a little bit more sarcastic than Mr. Wallace's, but I'm hoping there'll be an acquired taste for you. So thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to, I guess, maybe a little bright spot in the city manager leaving. So thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Action Memorandum 20-029, appointing Community Development Director Brad Hansen as the interim city manager and authorizing compensation. What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. My only question is, I would like to increase the expenditure. We know it's probably at least going to be 60 days until the new city manager is here, and I haven't decided on a figure, but I thought the $1,000 a month was not adequate for the responsibilities he's going to be taking on. So I'm open to the council. I of course, can make a motion, but I'm open to some suggestions from the council. Council?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
So the dollar figure that's on the legislation, that includes benefits, and that's based on a calculation of 10%, which is what our code states.
Okay.
However, in the past, the council, when Mr. Healy stepped in as interim, increased the 10% to 15% and made it effective immediately, whereas our code states 10% after 2 weeks or upon direction by council.
Okay.
So the 2,000 that includes benefits, but the council can provide, as code says you can provide whatever figure that you deem appropriate. But when Mr. Healy was placed in a position,
Right.
they made it 15% effective immediately. But this is calculated as 10%.
Okay. Okay. All righty. And so what, would we have to have a motion then to, or could we just do a bonus at the end when the new city manager came, or what would be some of the, and do you know what the 15% would be? So that would be just, what, 3,000?
So my recommendation would be to amend the, since we already have a motion on the table, amend the compensation to be 15%
Okay,
effective immediately. And I think that would be an appropriate,
okay,
again, because this is just, the certification of funds is just to give you an idea of what it potentially will cost. If
Okay.
Mr. Moosey is able to start sooner, then this would of course be less.
right,
And if Mr. Moosey has to go longer, then of course this would go more. So this is just an estimate, which has no bearing on the actual appropriation. So if you want to make it in line with the last interim,
then it would be
15% effective effective upon assumption of duties.
Okay, all righty, which would, so is that going to be the 25th, or is that going to be the 9th of May?
That would be the 25th.
The 25th, okay, all right. So.
So, Madam Mayor, you need a motion, and I would move that the compensation for the acting or interim city manager be 15% of salary effective immediately and continuing until the new manager is, 100, is completely in place.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been, now this discussion then will be on the amendment to change the 2,000 to 15% immediately. Further discussion on that amendment?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
this is
Councilman
Steve.
Perigin.
Just point of clarification, I think it would be upon assumption of duties as opposed to immediately. Or did you
Correct.
mean immediately?
Okay,
No, I think, if I might, Madam Mayor,
yeah,
Councilman, Carrington, I think the reason the word immediately was used before, is, you can say, the day that Mr. Wallace is no longer here, and yet, in effect, he will be, Mr. Hanson will actually be accepting duties and performing duties prior to that. That's why they used immediately, I believe.
further discussion by the council? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote then on changing the 2,000 to 15% immediately?
Councilmember Jill Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, now the main motion is before us, Action Memorandum 20-029. Further amendments or discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll then and the vote on Action Memorandum 20-029 as amended?
Councilmember Jill Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
The next item on our agenda is Action Memorandum 20-030, approving the cancellation of the April 28, 2020 regular council meeting. And I think you can see there that not only for the situation we're doing regarding COVID-19, but also we don't have any pending legislation that cannot be included on our May 12th meeting. So what is the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Action Memorandum 20-030. Discussion, amendment to the motion. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Jill Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington,
Sorry, I seen your lips move, Steve, but I didn't hear you.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is record of items placed on the table. Madam Clerk?
We do not have any tonight.
Okay. The next item is audience participation. Anyone in the audience can address the council for 3 minutes representing themselves or 5 minutes representing a group. Audience participation is now open. Did you sign this, Simon? Okay, seeing no one come forth, I'll close audience participation. The next is council members' comments, and I'll just start up in the left-hand corner. Councilwoman Berberich, do you have some council comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Musi to the city of Palmer, and I'm excited to work with him. I look forward to working with him. And then as far as city manager Mr. Wallace, I'm gonna miss him, and I wish him good luck. Had a great time working with him the short amount of time that I did get to work with him. But I wish him good luck in Wyoming. I would also like to say that I'm happy to hear that we're going to be discussing and considering the vote by mail feasibility study. I think that it makes sense at this time if we're talking about.
Are we still connected?
I can't hear anything.
It's only going on Zoom. I can't hear.
The Zoom isn't coming through on the phone for those of you that are not on the phone call.
Okay, Councilmember Berberick, can you start back to, where did you guys stop hearing her?
Did you hear
I'm
Council?
on both, so I'm on both, but it was about halfway through, right before you started talking about Councilman Best.
Okay, so probably you had mentioned that you were on the vote by mail feasibility study and wanting the cost comparison of the two. Did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Okay, it was about at that point? Okay.
Okay. So Councilwoman Berber, could you pick up your comments from there, please? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So what I was saying was that I feel I need to address the comments by Mr. David Fuller. And I'd like to urge the mayor to make a comment. It seems as if he is wanting to hear something from the city council and those of us that did not comment on the actions that were taken by Mr. Best in the beginning of January. So I think that if we don't, he will be at every council meeting until something does happen. So I'd like to urge.
Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
It dropped again.
Thanks. It just dropped right at the very end, so I don't know if there's like a mic that's going out or.
Okay. Okay, Councilwoman.
She said thank you, so I'll just say that she said thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am worried about our city, and the emptiness is making me more and more sad every day that we can't do very much for folks aside from what the borough is doing. But I do encourage that everyone can get out and support our citizens and small businesses as much as possible. I really appreciate the update from Ailish tonight and everything that the chamber is doing. They've been very visible in all of this, so I appreciate her coming to speak tonight. I'd like to also give a shout out to the always wonderful Dave Sutton with Public Works. It was my understanding that he was instrumental in helping a Palmer citizen this week who had fallen on the ice. He witnessed that happen while he was on his rounds around the city doing trash pickup. And aside from that, he is often the subject of positive feedback on Facebook and social media. So huge shout out to Mr. Sutton. To just follow up with what Councilwoman Berberick just said, I would just encourage Councilman Best to release the letter that he sent. We got it from the mayor, and it was addressed to the public, but I don't think it was ever sent to the public, or they haven't seen it. So I think just releasing that to the public would clear up a lot of the issues that Mr. Fuller has brought forward to us. Last, Mr. Wallace. While I was only elected in 2017, I did work with many of our city managers on community engagements before that. And Nate, you have, I can't see your face, so this is weird, but you have hands down been my favorite to work with, regardless of how many times you have frustrated me beyond belief. I've appreciated your consistency and your unfailing ability to always stay even-keeled in almost every situation. So I will miss you greatly, and I will do my utmost to wish you well in your future endeavors without sounding like I'm lying, because I just wish that you would stay. But I am very thrilled at the hiring of Mr. Musi as our next city manager. He has big shoes to fill, but he's already winning by having the name Moose in his name. So he's starting off on a good foot. So thank you for leaving Palmer in very capable hands and for all of the work that you've done for the city. I appreciate you, and I will miss you greatly. Thank you.
Councilwoman Valerius, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank everybody in the city of Palmer. I think we're doing a really good job in terms of spacing. Let's call it that instead of social, physical distancing. I'm really happy to see that our numbers have not shot up, which is really, really great from us, from city and state perspective. I want to wish Mr. Wallace the best in his future. Sorry that I didn't get to hang out in your office while you were here. I welcome Mr. Musi. I look forward to working with you. And I too am excited to move forward with a feasibility study for voting by mail. I think it's just kind of the progression of life right now as we know it. So I think that's a great thing. I also would encourage Mr. Best to, whether it's read his letter to us or address the citizens of Palmer, and if the mayor so chooses, I think I agree Mr. Fuller is going to keep coming to meetings until he hears from the council. So, but thank you and keep doing a good job for the city of Palmer.
Okay. Councilman Carrington?
I too want to thank Nate for all of his years working with us, and I have found him very refreshing in the way he approaches a budget, and he has a sense of transparency in government that's a bit unique. It's not the standard, but he does very well on working with us and working with other groups, and I have found him to be a very effective city manager, and I'm still pissed at him for taking off like he is. But I'm still amazed at what he can set his mind to and accomplish in a matter of only 2 months.
Oops, Councilman Best? Council comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I too am remiss that we are not physically there with Nate on this meeting to be able to say these things, but I think many of the folks that have spoken tonight about the accolades of Manager Wallace. Nate is a good guy, and it is truly reflective of how he carries himself in his professional life, the way that he has mentored folks, whether he knew that he was mentoring them or not. Just like Ailish had spoken about, she very eloquently said a lot of things that many people feel about Nate. It has been a great honor to have him as our city manager, and I really appreciate his time, and it will echo for quite a while. Thank you much.
Oops, sorry, my mic went off again. Deputy Mayor Combs? Council
Thank you,
comments?
Madam Mayor. This past week, and I forgot to bring this up earlier, so I wanted to make sure I brought it up now. I was able to help the mayor out. She had so many obligations. I sat in on a meeting with the Council of Mayors across the state that was put together by AML. It was extremely interesting, as I explained to the mayor, in that it was concerning the next steps that we need to make during this pandemic that will hopefully get us back to an economic recovery. I understand everybody when they say they're sad about the streets downtown. I'm sad, but I'm not as sad as I was in the 80s when there were some of the windows literally boarded up. I believe in my heart that Palmer, has got the strength to rebound, and mostly because they've got leaders such as ourselves that are willing to dig in and do absolutely everything we can. I've offered to the mayor to continue to work on that particular project with the Council on Mayors. There's a lot of different ins and outs about people getting back to work. And I do believe that the next probably 6 to 8 weeks are going to bring some changes that will then just become what my grandkids will start referring to as, do you remember when we used to? That's just the way we are. I'm glad to hear everybody's safe and sound. I do want to tell Nate that I know he didn't want a party. I'm not sure how this all happened this way so that we don't get to throw him a great big one, but I know that they'll fit in where you're going since I was born in Cheyenne. But I do want to remind you that even though there's not going to be a party, that I still have pictures, quite a few pictures, of you being in the dunk tank with your cowboy boots on. So those may show up in your life at some point in time, since we were unable to do anything else for you. So may you, I doubt that I'll physically be able to see you before you take off, but may you and your family find a good home in Cheyenne. I've already told you it's windier and colder. I don't have any idea why somebody would go there, but I hope that you have a very safe trip and that you're successful in your new endeavors, which I'm sure you will be. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And goodbye, sir. I'm sure I'll see you and send you 17 emails every day for the next week. And welcome, John. I'll pledge my support to you in whatever way that, I can help you. And I'm glad you have a sense of humor. So, as you can tell, we do manage to do that around here. I guess the only thing I would say regarding the request of former Councilman Fuller is not only with this council, but previous councils and assemblies that I worked with, when there was, quote, a violation of an ethics, I had gone to them personally, and there are some council people even serving now that I have gone to, and they have apologized, and that's all the further it went. And because I feel that we are a team, and so that is the way that I am personally handling it. And that is the way. I'll leave it up to Councilman Best, how he wants to handle it. I did talk to, because I'm like many of you, it's hard to keep the tears back when you're driving downtown and seeing the lack of cars and the lack of activity. I did reach out to some of the businesses, and I also reached out to the governor's office just asking, they do allow 10 people in a building or in a room, and ask if some of our local businesses, and I think the local businesses, especially the small ones, welcome this idea, would be where they could police themselves and allow 10 customers in and to their store. And but that has not been received or anything like that, because I think on the people that I've talked to anyway, 10 customers, even if they ended up with 20 customers in an 8-hour period, would mean a lot more than what they have right now. And so we'll continue, and if any of the rest of you have any ideas, let's continue to be united and move forward, helping our local businesses, because I know they all are hurting. So anyway, I'll see you guys in a month.